morning, guys. Welcome back to chapter 18, Organization of Tissues. So far, we have learned about different types of tissues which are classified as meristematic tissues and permanent tissues. Under meristematic tissues, we learned the three types of meristem like apical meristem, intercalary meristem, and lateral meristem. And permanent tissues, we learned that they are classified into two types as simple tissues and complex tissues. The basic principle behind the simple and complex is you have homogeneous in nature. Simple tissues are homogeneous in nature. You don't have categories. But in complex tissues, where each tissue there are four different forms or four different types. So that is the difference between simple and complex tissues. And the last class, I hope you remember, simple tissues, we learned parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. So be clear with this concept. Okay, so meristem and permanent. And under permanent, you have simple and complex. So why they are classified into simple and complex, that you should be having in mind. And this simple classified into parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. So without having a knowledge about these basic intros, that is so far what has been discussed, do not enter into complex tissues. So repeatedly I am saying this because based on all these concepts, you are going to learn in 10th and higher secondary. So if you don't understand what is parenchyma, what is sclerenchyma, what is collenchyma, or the difference between xylem and phloem, you will not understand any concept in 10th standard. So keep that in mind, and let us enter into today's concept. First, let us learn the difference between a meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. So in meristematic tissues, the cell wall is thin and elastic, whereas in permanent tissue, the cell wall is thick. The reason is, in meristematic tissues where you come across cell division, regularly you will find a cell division, but it is not so in permanent tissue, and that is the reason why you have a thick cell wall in permanent but not so in meristematic tissues. In meristematic tissues, they may be small, spherical, or polygonal, but the main characteristics is they are undifferentiated. But permanent tissues, they are differentiated. They are differentiated into parenchyma or sclerenchyma or collenchyma or xylem or phloem. In meristematic tissue, the cytoplasm is more or dense. Because of that, vacuoles are absent, almost absent, or very smaller, and the nucleus is large and prominent. But in permanent tissues, where you come across you have less cytoplasm, and you have a large vacuole, and nucleus is less conspicuous, that is comparatively smaller than a meristematic tissue. There are more intercellular spaces in permanent tissue, but you don't have a space at all in meristematic tissue. So already we have learned permanent tissues, parenchyma, sclerenchyma, collenchyma, where these cells have intercellular spaces. I hope you remember the pictures that I have displayed in last class with the intercellular spaces, which is not so in meristematic tissue. There is no intercellular space at all. Then the main function of meristematic tissue is it gives mechanical support and elasticity to the plant, whereas the main function of permanent tissue is giving mechanical support. Apart from various other functions, main function is mechanical support. Complex tissues. So these tissues, as we have learned in the intro as well as in last class I said about complex tissues, they are made of more than one type of cells which work together as a unit. So even though there are different types or different forms, they work together as a unit. That is the specialty of complex tissues. For example, if I say xylem, you have four types of xylem, and all together they are involved in the conduction of water and minerals from the root towards the shoot system. Similarly, the next type is phloem. You have again 4 types of phloem. Even though you have 4 types, they work together to transport or translocate the food that is produced in the leaf. From leaf, the food should be transported to all other parts of the plant. So that is the concept hidden behind this first point, that is complex tissues are made of one type of, more than one type of cells which work together as a unit. These complex tissues, they consist of parenchyma and sclerenchyma cells, but cholenchyma cells are absent in complex tissues. Then with regard to complex tissues, just now I said there are 2 types of complex tissues. One is xylem and phloem. Before last period we learned simple tissues which includes parenchyma, cholenchyma and sclerenchyma. Whereas in complex tissues, 2 types important, xylem and phloem. We call these tissues as vascular tissues. So like how we have a blood in humans and animals, these xylem and phloem, they are involved in the transportation of certain substances related to the plants, and so they can be called as vascular tissues. Okay, but as per our lesson we call these as complex tissues. Xylem, there are 4 types of xylem, which includes xylem tracheids, xylem fibers, xylem vessels and xylem parenchyma. Phloem, again there are 4 types: sieve elements, companion cells, phloem fiber and phloem parenchyma. So you have a fiber and parenchyma in both xylem as well as phloem, that is xylem fiber and xylem parenchyma, like that phloem fiber and phloem parenchyma. The remaining 2, that is in xylem you have tracheids and vessels. These 2 are important in the transportation of water from root towards the shoot system. Similarly, in phloem you have sieve elements and companion cells. These 2 are important in the translocation of food, that is starch, from the leaf towards other parts of the plant body. Now let us enter into the first type, xylem tracheids. So we will learn one by one all the 4 types of xylem tissues. Then we will go to the phloem tissues. Okay. So first type is xylem tracheids. So these are elongated or tube-like structures. So then and there I have given a photo of the tissues. So you can refer that. So they are elongated and tube-like structure. And tracheids, they are dead cells, they are not alive, they are dead cells. The wall will be hard, the cell wall of each cell will be hard, thick and lignified. The ends of these cells are tapering, sometimes blunt or chisel like. Chisel, in Tamil it is called as uli. So using that you come across this chisel being used by a carpenter or sometimes a mason who tries to use this chisel and break or bring that wall or wood into a shape. Okay, so like that the ends are tapering, so that's why they called as a chisel like. They don't have protoplast is absent. That is, since they are dead cells, protoplast is none other than cytoplasm and nucleus. Okay, so protoplast is absent. They have large lumen without any content. What is lumen? The since it is long tube-like structure, the inner space found inside the cell, inside the tubular cell, is actually called as lumen. So just now I said they lack protoplasm. So no cytoplasm, no nucleus. So that is the meaning of the last point. They have large lumen but no content. That is no cytoplasm or nucleus. The main function of xylem tracheids is they conduct water and also give mechanical support. So already I said xylem tracheids and sieve tubes, they are mainly involved in the conduction of water. Okay. Then the second type is xylem fiber. Again they are also elongated, lignified, that is the cell wall is made of lignin, an organic substance named as lignin. And here also you come across pointed at both ends, that is tapering. Like xylem fiber, they have tapering ends both sides. The main function of xylem fiber is mechanical support. That is, they give strength to the plant. You have two types of fibers which is not in a book. One is septate and aseptate. So that is, you come across cross walls in between. In some cases you don't come across cross walls, or in other words I could say segmented and non-segmented. So if it is segmented, divided into different layers, it is called as septate. If it is not divided into different layers, it is called as aseptate. The third type what we are going to learn is xylem vessel. So look into the photo. This is how a xylem vessel look like. So they are also long cylindrical tube like, but not tapering end. Okay, the first two you learned that they are tapering ends, but xylem vessels they are not tapering ends. Even xylem parenchyma, they are not tapering ends. Okay, xylem vessels, they have a lignified walls, that is the wall made up of lignin. Here also you come across a wide central lumen. So inside you have a central lumen, and these are also dead cells. They do not have protoplast, and the vessels are arranged in longitudinal series, that is nearer to like a water pipe. Okay, so they look like, I hope you know pipe. Okay, water pipes like that. They are long and arranged. The walls are perforated. That is, you have so if you look into that photo, the perforation, that is, you have gaps in between the tissues, one above the other. You tissue, you have gaps through which the water actually moves from one cell to other. So that is called as perforation. Okay, so that is small gaps. um, then the function of this xylem vessels is they are involved in the transportation of water, and they also give mechanical support to the plants. The last but not least, xylem parenchyma. Okay, the fourth type of xylem tissue, xylem parenchyma, which is a living. They are thin walled. Okay, and their main function is to store starch and fatty substances. Okay, so these are the four different types of xylem tissues. Whereas just have in mind, xylem tracheids and xylem vessels, they are dead cells actually. So simply they they don't have protoplasm, they don't have cytoplasm and the absence of nucleus, and so they are dead cells. Whereas xylem fiber and xylem parenchyma, they are living cells. Right. Now let us learn the second type of complex tissues, that is phloem. So far we learned about xylem tissues. We learned that four different types of xylem tissues, their structure and function. Now let us learn the structure and function of the different types of phloem tissues. The first type is sieve elements. As I said in the beginning, sieve elements and the companion cells, they are the important types of phloem which are involved in the transportation of food or starch. So these sieve elements, they are elongated like other xylem tissues. They are elongated like a tube. Okay, so if you look into this photo, you have two types of sieve. One is sieve tube and sieve plates. That is the elements, the sieve elements. They are classified into the tubular structure as sieve tubes, and in then and there you have partition. So that partition they call it as sieve plates. So you have sieve tubes and sieve plates, collectively called as sieve elements, whereas this sieve tubes are elongated structure, they appear like tubes, whereas sieve plates, they are the transverse walls which are perforated and found in between the tubes. So something like as I said before, like in sugarcane. Okay, so but that is different. Okay, so this is different. Okay, so you have partitions then and there, and those partitions are called as sieve plates. So you have sieve tubes and the sieve plates. Sieve tubes are elongated. Sieve plates, they are perforated, and they are none other than transverse walls found inside the sieve tubes. So this basically these elements, they are slender. Okay, so they are long, narrow. So that's what meant by slender. and they are placed end to end, that is one above the other, like that they are placed one end to end. The main function of sieve elements is translocation of food. So in the beginning itself I said translocation of food, which is done by sieve elements. The next is companion cells. So as you could look into the photo, all are placed adjacent to each other. Okay, so you have a sieve, then next adjacent to that you have this companion cells, and adjacent to that you have the other two, that is parenchyma and fibers. Okay, so these are also elongated cells. Companion cells are also elongated cells. They are attached to the lateral walls of sieve tubes, that is next to, that's what I said. Okay, they are found next to the sieve tubes. Lateral, okay, on the lateral side you find. I hope you know what's meant by lateral side. Okay, they are almost equal in length to the sieve tube elements, because some they are formed from the sieve elements, and some they are formed from another companion cell, so they are almost of the same length. Sieve tubes or sieve elements compared to companion cells, they are almost of the same length. Here also you come across transverse walls which are perforated in case of companion cells. Then third type is called as phloem parenchyma. So these are all phloem parenchyma are living cells which comprise of cytoplasm and nucleus. Their main function is to store food materials. So background you have a photo, and apart from that you also have another photo, so that you will get a clear idea about phloem parenchyma. And in this photo where you come across sieve plate, presence of sieve tube. Okay, next to this you have companion cells, and adjacent to the sieve elements you also have parenchyma, phloem parenchyma. So this photo explains the structure, and on the background where you have a microscopic view of this phloem parenchyma, almost similar. Okay, so where you have sieve elements, next to that you have phloem parenchyma on the right hand side. The fourth and last type of phloem tissue is phloem fiber. So these are all mainly sclerenchymatous cells. Okay, so absence of parenchymatous. They are mostly sclerenchymatous cells. They are elongated and lignified. So the cells or the tissues are elongated, and the walls of the cells are made up of lignin. That's why they are called as lignified. And the main function of this phloem fiber is giving mechanical strength. Again here also you come across a picture that is displayed for your convenience, which shows the presence of phloem parenchyma. Adjacent to that you have phloem fiber. So all this photo, I hope it will help you to understand the concept. Okay, so a larger in the middle you have this sieve tubes, above and below, like as I said before, like a sugar cane you have sieve plates, and on the right hand side you have companion cells, on the left hand side you have parenchyma and fibers. Okay, so like that you come across the phloem tissues placed one next to the other. We are almost at the end of our today's class. So let us finish today's class with a basic differentiation between xylem and phloem tissues. In the beginning we learned the difference between meristematic tissues and permanent tissues, and let us end today's session with the difference between xylem and phloem, the two types of complex tissues. So you all know by this time xylem tissues, they conduct water and mineral elements. So usually water and minerals are transported from root system towards the shoot system. Okay, upward movement. And phloem which conducts the organic solutes or food materials or starch, which is produced in the leaf by photosynthesis, to all other parts of a plant body. So xylem conducts water and minerals, whereas phloem conducts food, in simple ways food. Okay. Secondly, xylem which is mostly unidirectional. The movement of xylem tissues is mostly unidirectional. So this you also learn in 10th standard. Okay, so that's why I said everything is important. Okay, unidirectional. Okay, but in case of phloem it is not so, it is bidirectional, or I would say multidirectional. Okay, because from leaves the food is transported to each and every part of the plant body. but it is not so in xylem unidirectional. That is, as I said in previous point, it is always from the root towards the apical part of the plant, that is towards the terminal shoot end. So that's why it is called as unidirectional. And thirdly, you come across two important xylem tissues, tracheids and vessels, which are mainly involved in the conduction of water and minerals. Again I repeat, xylem tracheids and xylem vessels. Whereas in phloem, I said the sieve tubes and companion cells, but in your book it is given only sieve tubes. So you can follow the book. When you go to higher classes, you will learn it is the sieve tubes and companion cells which are actually involved in the transportation of food via phloem. Okay, and there are four types of xylem. Like how we have four types of phloem, we have four types of xylem. That is xylem tracheids, xylem vessel, xylem fiber, and xylem parenchyma. Similarly, we have four types of phloem, that is sieve elements, companion cells, phloem fiber, phloem parenchyma. So in both the types of tissues, I said before, we have fiber and parenchyma. So xylem fiber, phloem fiber, xylem parenchyma, phloem parenchyma. And the main function of parenchyma is storage of food. So if at all if you have forgotten this point, you can just recall and write that for xylem parenchyma you can write the function is storage of food. Similarly for phloem parenchyma you can write storage of food materials. Okay, so why I say is that all these are important. Okay, so it's not that simply mugging up the points. So whatever you listen, whatever you hear, whatever you see, that also helps you in your exams or in your life. Okay, so like that we have various difference between xylem and phloem. Okay, so again I repeat that last point. Xylem comprises of xylem tracheids, xylem vessels, xylem fiber, and xylem parenchyma. In phloem we have sieve elements, companion cells, phloem fiber, and phloem parenchyma. So that makes our lesson, that is my part, to an end. Animal tissues, as I said in the beginning of this lesson, which will be taken by Mr. John Ruben. So prepare well for the classes. Don't hesitate to learn. Okay, so whatever you do which is good for your life, good for your future, and even good for your next generation. So the more you are intelligent, your offsprings will be intelligent, that is your kids will be intelligent. I hope you understand. So keep that in mind, and don't waste your time. Concentrate on your studies, prepare well, and try to attend all the online tests in a full-fledged manner, that is in the sense listen properly the classes and then attend. Thank you. God bless you.